This conference will now be recorded.
So, good day, everybody. Morning, afternoon, evening, from wherever you're dialing in. We've got a back to agenda again. This month is again about full project debrief. We'll go through updates from all the relevant work groups. We'll start with some announcements. Then we'll have a quick, brief update from the cooling environments team. And we'll be going through all the workstream updates one by one. Some of these sessions are maybe a little bit longer, so hopefully we'll be able to fit everything within the hour. John Bean will be managing the time today, and we'll keep track of whether we're running out of time or not.
Yeah, on that note, I'm going to try to hold people to 5 minutes, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning, okay?
Thank you for that. So let's get started with some of the housekeeping items and announcements. This is going to be the last call that we're doing on the GoToMeeting app. OCP is now transferring all the community calls into Zoom, a tool that should be familiar with everybody, I guess. This also means that we'll be distributing new meeting links. Right after this meeting, I will be canceling all the Immersion monthly calls. So any calls that you have referring to GoToMeeting, you can safely delete from your agenda, and I will be sending out new invitations with the Zoom links. That allows us to clear up any potential legacy invites that might be in your calendars. Good thing to announce as well is that we've had our votes and our reviews of the new workstream proposal submitted by Peter Liu from America regarding component validation case study. This is a workstream that will be focusing on the creation of a framework to help other parties in the future on, hey, who do you approach? What kind of parties, what kind of industry stakeholders do you need to approach to get certain testing done, certain types of testing done, which parties will have, which type of capabilities, where should you be able to expect some results for whatever you're looking for. This is the call schedule is still to be announced, but it will be a closed session, invitation only, and the group will be working with a pre-signed CLA, and some of the meetings will even take place under NDAs to facilitate streamlined discussions where people can safely speak about the capabilities. Obviously, the outcome of this workstream will be public, will be open source, and there will be debriefs in this community call every 2 months. This means that our project has been enlarged with another work stream. You can see it here on the right-hand side. For those who are not familiar with another recent change as well, is that Kevin Garrow from Murata is fully on board as the workstream lead for power distribution in Immersion. And a warm welcome to Kevin again. And the component validation case study will be part of the future cadence as well. Since it's still to be kicked off, there's not going to be an update on that workstream today, but in the next call we will definitely address that. Another change, which is not yet processed here in this image, relates to a transfer from Cosimo Paccioli from Alfa Laval. He has been leading the heat reuse project, and he will now be seated in advanced cooling facilities as a replacement for John Gross, who has resigned from his role in ACF. More on that will be dealt with by cooling environment leads in this slide. So, Sean, Don, which one of you is going to enlighten us with a quick update from the cooling environments projects?
Is Sean on the call? I think that narrows it down. So can I
Okay, if
can
it's
I share a
not,
slide real quick?
yeah, go ahead. Making you presenter now.
Okay, just a second here. There we go. Okay, real quick, I'm going to fly through. There is a Cooling Environments community call this Thursday. That's where we, as a community, reach out to the broader world and tell them what we've been doing. So hopefully you already have invites to that or planning attending. We look like a fairly strong attendance. About 160 people have already said they want to show up. As was already announced, Cosmo is now the co-lead with John Minaj. And one of the key things I do want to highlight is the focus of how we go to community or the impact on our community is kind of changing. What I mean by that is for the ACF for some time has talked to me about show me your megawatt, which is trying to help people enable data centers to add a megawatt here or a megawatt there. What we're seeing is in the past 90 days or past 4 or 5 months, there's just a tsunami of interest in liquid cooling. And now we still need to be able to visualize what a megawatt of, say, immersion looking like, but we need to work together as a community to find a way to address this tsunami here. And what they're saying in the past 90 days, there's 2.1 gigawatts of data center leases have been signed just in the past 90 days. 2 megawatts of data center lease is about 2,100 CDUs, 1,700 or 32 miles of headers, and 84,000 branch lines. Again, a lot of that data is around rack-based form factors. And what I am appealing to is a cross-pollination of effort by all the communities to work with ACF to try to find out ways, once you distribute a couple megawatt, or say 10, 20, 30 megawatts of pipe, and 2 years from now you want to do something different, or 5 years from now you want to do something, how can we approach this design concepts with circularity in mind? How can we look at reuse? How can we look at ITE refresh? It's no longer a megawatt here and a megawatt there. People are deploying at 10, 20, 100 megawatts or even 300 megawatt solutions. So to that extent, one of the things I am reaching out for, ACF, I guess this slide didn't really come in too well here, but they actually, Advanced Cooling Facilities is expanding their focuses, and so they need cross-pollination from the different projects to make this happen. And if you want to reach out, you can, but there's a lot of the things are moving forward. We are recruiting more leaders for these projects. I think the work team, the leadership team has been overtaxed to date. And briefly, just kind of one of the things we have been socializing is the possibility of, can you put circularity in design? Now, this is scheduled kind of around form factors that are consistent, but the whole concept here, can you actually, once you put in your 4-inch pipe, your 6-inch pipe, is there a way we can use it? What can we do to standardize our industry without inhibiting innovation? I know that there's a lot of controversy in this area, but there's a lot of urgency and industry demand. So that's all I have. Any questions on that?
Thanks a lot, Don, for sharing this. There's not going to be a lot of time for questions in these debrief calls. If you want to ask questions, please join the respective work stream or project that is presented, and gear up for asking questions in the relevant project and work stream calls. For now, we'll move on to fluids and materials as the first work stream to debrief. Puneet, I believe you're in the call.
Yes, thanks, Rolf. Good morning, everyone. So I will take a few minutes just to give an update on what we are doing in the fluids and materials work stream. I don't think Peter is joined, but so we both are actually continuing the conversations with the experts in the market. Some of the updates in this work stream is that, as Rolf mentioned, we are actually moving into Zoom calls. So we had the first call last week. And we request everybody here, if they're interested in fluids and materials work group. So there is a link shared. You can just get the access and then join us in the subsequent calls. So one of the updates, I think this is, we actually a bit struggled with respect to kickstarting one of the subgroups, which is related to FMEA. And I think Peter has taken the mantle to take additional role where leading this subgroup. And I think he's on vacation this week. So when he's back, so he will be sending out the meeting invitations and also the interested experts to join this and contribute. So that is one of the updates from there. And then I think I would like to give accolade to Ken as well as Spencer. They have done a fantastic job in leading two of these subgroups. I thought maybe we should talk about briefly here to wider group. One on oxidation stability, actually defining the program for fluids. How do we measure and understand the potential? The other part is on the safe handling of these fluids for specifically for this application. Can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, so you see, I think I shared this even in the last monthly call as well. There are various experts, so they have taken the interested and joining the 7 of these subgroups, of which at least I would say at least 2 groups are really progressing well. And I think we will have a chance to share that in the OCP Global Summit in October. One on oxidation stability, I just mentioned, Ken is running this subgroup effort. So, and then Spencer on number 4 on the safe handling of fluids. So the other groups such as 2B here on the component level and 5A, I think they are, these will be run by Intel team involving Max and Samantha. So they have, come up with a lot of experiments themselves, and they would like to share that to the industry, what they're developed with respect to how do we test and how do we understand the performance of these individual components with respect to various fluids which are having different chemistries. And I think one of the things where John is also heavily involved is on 5B on the immersion tank testing for material compatibility, right? So that's a bigger topic everybody is interested in. So they are actually, progressing and they will be coming up with some recommendations for this year. The plan for us as the leads would be is to share what we have done this year on these, considering several subgroups, just to give a high-level updates at OCP Global Summit. And that's what we plan on doing. Next slide, please. So going into depth briefly on the oxidation stability, I think this is one of the topics which has been discussed by various experts. Is one of the questions asked, how do we understand the oxidation potential for fluids, considering we have single phase, 2-phase, different chemistries involved within single phase. Now, how do we address this? So Ken is actually running this subgroup wherein, understanding what are the different chemistries we have, and they're also doing a mapping of different types of test methods that are available, not necessarily for immersion, but for other industries, inclusive of power industry. And how do we, translate those learnings and understand the need for immersion? How do we tweak and modify some of these test specifications and the procedures that will actually be more replicated to the immersion application? So there is more work to be done. The first of all is identifying what is there in the literature, and then how do we modify for our needs? And then how do we, if once we modify with recommendations, then calling in all the fluid manufacturers, if they have generated some of these data, then compile and see whether these standards is making sense, so that it is validated and then finally improvised as a recommendation for the industry. So that is something.
You're at 1 minute.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And the next slide, please.
If I can just interject, this is Ken.
Yes, I can.
We just had a call right before this call, and at this point, if anyone has any data, so it's a general ask, if anyone has any data on these relevant oxidative stability tests, that could be coded data or whatever, but we're looking to establish those baselines, and that would really help us you know, to kind of hit the ground running. So, and if they could share that with somebody of the team, or send it to Puneet or myself, then that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. The next slide, please, the last slide, won't take much time, is on the safe handling of fluids, right? So this is, Spencer is running this. Again, this is one of the key areas where we need to develop a chapter which talks about how we handle, safe handle the fluids which are there in the market, and what are the procedures need to be taken by the customers when handling these products. So there are various regulations we have, and we just need to adhere to each of those. And we will compile all this information in a chapter and then publish this later this year. With that, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Puneet.
All right, thank you so much, Puneet. We'll be moving on straight to Power Distribution and Immersion by Oriol and Kevin. Which one of you is going to speak to the slides?
Kevin is, because Oriol is out on a bank holiday in Spain today. So
fantastic. Well, wishing all the best on holiday.
Yes.
And just for everybody's information, if you want to join these work streams, you can also scan the codes, the QR codes on the bottom of each page. That brings you directly to the mailing list subscription page. So feel free to go ahead, scan, and join them, and you will receive all the invites. Please go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so if we can go to the next slide. During the last couple calls, we've been talking about obviously power and immersion, so connectors and the amount of power that they can handle in immersion and fluid versus air. We're typically utilizing the same parts that are used in air, and in fluid we find that the connectors, the power clip especially, can handle about twice the current with the same temperature rise. Now, one of the things that I've brought up and would like to talk about is the differences between the 54 volt and 51 volt in that same temperature rise. And as you can see here, ORV3, the power supply spec today is 47.5 to 51 volts. And that has come along because in OCP, when they were running 10, 12 kilowatts, they found that the efficiency in the server was better for the DC to DC. Now, when you start moving up to 50 kilowatts and more in fluid, like we're trying to do, I suggest that we look at 54 volts. Please go to the next slide. And the reason for that, because in the server you can actually get a 54 volt to 12 volt DC to DC, and the efficiency is almost the same as the 51 volt, the 4-to-1. It's a little bit different, but it's almost the same. Go ahead to the next one. But the real reason that I want to do this is that when you look at the voltage drop across the connectors and down the bus bar, that voltage drop is simply I squared R. And the difference between 54 volts and 51 volts with this I squared R turns out to be about 10.8% difference in the voltage drop in that connector or down that bus bar. And that translates directly to temperature rise. So by just changing from 51 volts to 54 volts, we can now push that connector a little farther or have more margin in the connector. And when we're already getting to the edges on those connectors and on that bus bar. The problem I have with this is that this is the Meta team and is pushing for 51 volts. In fact, they're talking about going to 50 volts. But that connector is right up against its limit. And so this is just something that I wanted the broader team to be aware of. I know in talking in power to individual applications, we're going to be trying to go with 54 volts. As a power company, it's not that big a deal. We can make a 54 volt power supply. We can make a 51 volt power supply, but it's up to the server. The server has to be able to handle it. That's all. So anyway, this is one of the major items that we've been looking at recently, and we continue to work to put power in immersion and cover all the items. The connector guys are working their behinds off to get a little more power as well. That's all I have for today.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. And I think it's worthwhile mentioning that you guys have reached out to the server project to facilitate these discussions as well, right? So this is being collaboratively approached and addressed by joint communities.
Yeah, one last item. The server guys actually have told us their spec is 40 to 60 volts. So it allows it. It's just that the meta team and the servers that they're producing for ORV3 are now 51 volts and actually talking about going to 50. So we just have to talk openly with the whole server community and the whole community to see which direction. And it all depends probably more on the application. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kevin.
We'll move on to hardware management by Mick Jones. However, Mick has sent me a message that he will not be able to make it today. So he explicitly asked me to simply cover a very short update on his behalf, which is on the current slide. The thing he just wanted to relay to everyone is that the interoperability profiles are the last major requirement to be specified in this work stream. And after this, they will be focusing on the creation of the mockups and examples and creation of message registries, as well as the creation of the interoperable profiles and schema interactions. And this should bring them a lot closer to finishing up this work, and they will be closing out the topics on security and control policy. And that's pretty much it for the hardware management update. And on behalf of Mick, he apologizes for not being able to make it today, but there was he had to cancel his presence last minute. So there will be more in the hardware management workstream, and in 2 months' time, when we do this update again, hopefully we'll get more visibility even on the progress made. So we can move along now to the Immersion challenges by either David or Raul. Which one of you is gonna take the floor here? Assuming that one of you is in the call. Okay, we're gonna park this one. Either there's audio problems or David is not here. So we'll revisit this one until a little bit later. John, would you mind pinging Raul and David to see if they're on? Meanwhile, I'll take you guys through the Immersion requirements update. And there is good news because the revision 2.1 has been completed. Currently, we have received some input from the community that will be processed and discussed in the meeting that is scheduled for tomorrow for the Immersion requirements session. And that means that the final vision will be submitted to the incubation committee in the upcoming month. The work stream is going to be focusing on a few items going forward. First of all, to the supporting of the FMEA study, which Puneet has already shown as a work effort for the fluids and materials community. This is something that we're supporting within the Immersion requirements environment as well, simply because the current aim is to establish certain temperature levels or safe temperature levels for fluids, for certain fluid properties, in particular the flash point and auto ignition point. We'll be focusing as well on the identification of additional focus areas, and we'll be providing some additional support to other work streams where that is necessary. And we're going to be furthering the discussions and particularly the tuning of the thermal loss to the environment, which is an item that we've now included with an initial description and procedure how to establish a thermal loss figure for an immersion solution that is documented within the revision 2.1. And we'll be looking at deepening that approach and exploring and validating the current process that we've described. So what is the immersion requirements designed to do? Well, it's a qualification document. It contains requirements, minimum requirements that any immersion technology should comply with. A very basic requirement. There's not much exciting or complicated in these requirements, but it is a very clear, but it does implement some basic standards or basic references for that any immersion technology should be able to comply with. So that means that any full immersion solution should qualify against this, or any fluid or any product which is partially affected by the requirements document. And it is essential for any of these products to qualify against these if they wish to get any kind of OCP-based recognition or marketplace positioning, or if there are guidelines that are created or specifications, they need to meet the minimum requirements that are outlined in the requirements documents. So how does that work? How would you qualify? It's actually fairly simple. On the wiki page, there is a link to the qualification checklist. That link will be updated soon to the new checklist as soon as the new document has been passed through the IC. As soon as the checklist is submitted to the project leads, which is John Bean and myself, we'll be making space for a 20-minute presentation in one of these community calls, and after that we'll schedule a 60-minute peer review session, which will be hosted by all the authors of the document, of the requirements document. So far, the immersion requirements updates. I would like to hand it over to IT equipment warranty in immersion. Rich Lappenbush or Michael Cordell, which one of you is going to take the floor?
Yeah, I can take it, Rolf.
All right, fantastic.
Yep, so we'll just kind of walk through a quick high-level update. One of the big issues that we're struggling with right now and with regarding warranty is lack of public information. It seems like there's generally a pretty strong consensus, especially among this community, that there's a lot of advantages or benefits to moving to an immersion based system, but when it comes to providing data or publications or anything along those lines to substantiate those claims to the business professionals that kind of make the decisions behind warranty, there's kind of a vacuum in that area. And so that's one of the major hurdles that we've run into in terms of forming a sort of general set of guidelines around providing warranties that explicitly cover immersion. We've actually already had our August meeting. It was yesterday morning. I didn't have the updates for these slides yet, but we did come up with a couple of actions out of that meeting to hopefully kind of help us address this. One is to set up a closed focus group to accommodate discussions that can still be held under NDA, at which point we can sanitize and kind of make certain information hopefully public without implicating any manufacturer specifically. And another action we've taken is to organize a panel or summit or whatever you want to call it, but some forum to capture the voice of the integrators and end users of immersion systems. So looking beyond just the manufacturers and OEMs, and possibly look to do that sometime in mid-September. And in addition to that, we've also had a couple of meetings now where we've sort of just brainstormed kind of what are the common themes or challenges around or objections to offering warranties that explicitly cover immersion. We've got an open document for anybody to go out and review if they'd like. And so now we're kind of walking down that list and trying to address each bucket, I guess, specifically with solutions or guidelines around that. And so that's kind of where this effort is at today. So yeah, and then these are just a link or list of links for the work stream. We're also switching to a twice monthly cadence, so we'll be meeting the second and fourth Monday now going forward instead of just the second Monday to kind of build on the momentum we've got around some of the work that's going on. That's all I've got, Ralph.
Thank you very much, especially for the great work. Would you be able to copy paste these links into the chat with the absence of QR codes for these?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, then we'll move on to signal integrity. Kai, are you in the call?
Yes, next page, please.
Hey, Kai, I haven't heard back from the one group yet, so you may get a couple of extra minutes here if I don't get back from them, okay?
Thank you so much. This is by the update by Kai, Andy, and also with the members. Next page. First is we update the fluid dielectric property and the measurement requirement. Next page. So this is the updated consent from the group member about the dielectric properties of each type of the dielectric the fluid. This is not for the spec, the fluid, but this is for the design people and simulation engineer to use. There are two types of hydrocarbon chemicals. We also provide the range. Each fluid has a range of the simulation to be used. For example, hydrocarbon 2 to 2.2. So this is a more updated information. Next page. We also have the participant, the connector members, connector cable company members who join to update their setup. We have some common input to the industry that the fluid may leak into the VNA cable, may have the impact of the SMA connector. We have a suggestion to, when we do the high frequency test, we can either limit the immersion time to 15 minutes or seal the SMA cable or to use the 3D print part and the silicon glue to build the local fluid reservoir to contain the fluid in the DOT only. This is give the detailed practical tips when people doing the high frequency test. Next page. Our current top SI issues, next page, is first is device interoperability. We all talk about the high speed. We realize that there will be no committee or no industry bandwidth so far to give a separate SI spec. For example, the PCIe 6.0, 5.0 IEEE spec. We do not see effort to develop an independent spec. So we will use the same spec as in the air, as in the liquid. Basically, is those industry spec will also apply to the immersion I/O interface to ensure interoperability. And in this case, we also know that it's very hard and expensive to use a BERT or other high-end scope to measure the device, measure the spec to use in the liquid. So that's we suggest the industry, also the silicon partner, to use on-die scope to build the BERT eye measurement capability on the die, so we can use that without liquid touch the BERT high-end fixtures to be able to measure the eye and compare to the air. So we can use a software method to qualify the immersion quality. Next page. Next page is also by design. By design, we know that the immersion has the dielectric constant impact. The impedance design is critical. There is also another way is to one way is to tune the immersion impedance, interconnect impedance. Another way is to increase the signal to noise ratio so that we have less immersion, we have less channel loss to compensate the actual reflection loss caused by the liquid. So for example, the PCIe 5.0 current requires 36 dB at 16 gigahertz for end-to-end margin. If we apply this rule, we could recommend 3 dB less end-to-end margin, loss margin to compensate the immersion impact. Next page. Also because of the team agreed, we need to align with the other OCP topic, align with the OAI, the open accelerator infrastructure because of the AI market requirement. So the goal is we work out OAI 1.5, 2.0 loss budget, identify each component budget impacted by the immersion. This will be the next 1 month, 2 months focus. Next page. Next page, please.
You want next page again?
Yeah. Yes. Next page. This will be our focus. The interface, example interface will be PCIe external cable interconnect, connect CPU to GPU node. Also, there will be QSFP DD Ethernet immersion study to ensure the accelerator GPU interconnect. Next page. Next page. So this is the current 1.5 OAI mezzanine OEM current accelerator OS spec. We will work out the immersion channel loss budget based on what we know the dielectric impact to the whole channel. This will be the next focus that align with OAI OCP other team to go. I think that's all for this month's update. Also, we see more and more interconnect company update to the committee. We also Andy also help increase the meeting frequency to two times a month, basically every first week Monday, and the third week Monday will be the SI committee discussion. I realize we can just use this as a good time to group discussion. So twice a month now. Thank you. That's SI update. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kai, for this fantastic content, and great to see this amount of work being done in your team. So with that, having said that, I'd like to move over to the TCO modeling. Eddie or Alison, which one of you is going to take the floor?
It's going to be me today. Eddie is swamped.
Fantastic.
So we don't have a very big update. And just to mention that our next meeting is the 23rd, so we'd love to have some attendance ramped up a bit. We've been in the weeds, and they spent the first quarter working on the vocabulary, which was very important, but very time intensive. Now we're in a different set of weeds, but we've been working on the improvements that were recommended by Intel. Made our way through that. And that obviously a plethora amount of variables. We've had some excellent inputs. We thank everyone that has been attending, and we're making a note here about our go-to meeting moving to Zoom. We have obviously not received that, so for our 23rd meeting, expect that updated invite too. So we are looking to do some heavy deep dives. We are feeling a little stressed a bit about our presentation at OCP, so we want to crunch out a couple of intensive, maybe 2-hour sessions to get through, again, some of the vast variables that we're dealing with right now. So any input, we're just kind of giving a shout out to anyone that would like to attend that. Please send myself or Eddie an email. We'll get you added to that. Again, trying to cultivate what we are going to be presenting at the OCP Summit in October, which is like 60 days from now. I'm not sweating. I'm not worried. Are you worried? I'm not worried. So no. But the great thing about TCO is that, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel is going to be this amazing opportunity, this amazing calculator, TCO calculator that can be shared. And we're really excited about the end game, even though, again, we're in the deep trenches now. So any support would be greatly appreciated. That's it.
Fantastic. Okay, it seems that we're pretty well on the time schedule. We're missing out on one work stream, but and we'll move over to the last work stream update, which is the Open Accelerator Initiative collaboration. And I will be covering this on behalf of Cheng and Jessica. And just to take you a little bit back, this group has been created to facilitate the collaboration between the Open Accelerator infrastructure group and Immersion to ensure also immersion readiness of upcoming accelerators. At some point during that collaboration, we arrived at thermal modeling, and that's where we hit pretty much a dead end, simply because it seemed it became very difficult to get thermal analysis done by current vendors. Due to the amount of proprietary information and IP sensitivity that goes into each solution's particular or specific thermodynamic properties on how fluid is moving around and how effective the chip is cooled. For this reason, we decided to do a university outreach to see if we could build up an open CFD environment in which we could run testing independently from individual vendors. Oh, there's something. Sorry, guys. Let me just reshare this. Here we go. So for that, we've reached out to some universities that are attached to the to OCP in some way, primarily through the Future Technologies Initiative, with the question to facilitate, with the question whether they are interested in facilitating such an environment, potentially run by students. And that environment would be focused on future generation accelerator chips, but also allow other products within OCP to be analyzed for immersion cooling technologies in collaboration with this community. So the current progress of this is that we have engaged with one university. Conversations are ongoing. A second meeting is to be scheduled. However, this may not result in a collaboration. If it doesn't, we will do a broader outreach to other educational institutes around the world to gauge interest to collaborate with OCP for setting up such a CFD environment. As soon as that is done, as soon as we have found one or more universities that are willing to step up and join us in this exercise, we'll be setting up a workstream outline and we'll start the creation of a CFD-based environment in collaboration with this broader community. And after that, we'll be able to do, we hope to be able to do collaborative thermal analysis of various systems and chips and various solutions independent of individual immersion technologies. So just so that you are all informed, the outreach summary, I've tried to capture it on a single slide. The objective that we're sharing with universities is to develop the open CFD environment for AI-focused future accelerated chips and the thermal analysis and immersion cooling. But we're also taking into account any other systems that might be of interest to the broader OCP community. The benefits for such students would be that they gain experience with industry networking and some hands-on experience in while being guided by a broad industry expertise. And they get the connections as well. They get the names out there through the OCP community, which facilitates a career growth foundation. The initial project duration that we're aiming at is approximately 6 months, but we do envision that this may be extended to a lot more time, to a lot longer period, voluntary and primarily remotely managed in terms of the CFD environment. It's a collaborative approach, so there's also no funding against this kind of collaboration, but there would be guidance by all the project leads and the workstream leads, and there would be direct collaboration with all the industry stakeholders, which are also, well, pretty much any of you in the community, including everybody else who's not on the call today. And the key tasks would be about identifying challenges and to initially design the CFD environment and perform and refine thermal simulations. So for that, we will be looking for motivated students with fluid dynamics and mechanical engineering backgrounds with at least CFD knowledge. So this concludes this workstream update, and it also concludes the content for today's call. I understand that both Raoul and David are not going to be joining today. So that means we have an extra 8 minutes on our hands. I will stop the recording, but we can use the time for any questions you might want to ask about the Immersion community, about immersion technology. We're in here together, so I guess we have plenty of people to respond to any discussion items. For now, just want to thank you for your attendance today, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you all after the holidays again, which is now. Next month, we will be dealing with external content. Until then.